We're down 2% on Bristol Myers Squibb. This is because it's going to be splashing the cash, just more than $4 billion worth. It's yet again another pharma spree, but this time it's agreeing to buy radiological drug developer RayzeBio for about $4.1 billion. Let's talk about why Bristol Myers Squibb is beefing up and what other activity we're seeing in the world of pharma right now with Madison Mueller joining us to discuss all of the latest and greatest in her space. And Madison, this particular deal done by Bristol Myers Squibb, why are they trying to be buying in this space? Why do we see RayzeBio like doubling in its share price?
Yeah, it just shows the value really of these radiopharmaceutical drugs that pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, is really interested in getting in on this space. We've seen deals with Eli Lilly and Co. Earlier this year. I think it was in October. Bristol bought another cancer drug maker, Mirati, in October as well. We obviously have the massive Pfizer Seagen deal that was in the cancer drug space as well. So what's different about these drugs is, as opposed to the chemotherapies that everyone knows about, these are more targeted at the tumors. They attack the cancerous cells and they leave the other healthy cells relatively unscathed. So they're safer for the patients. You have less side effects, less off-target effects. And so there's a lot of innovation happening in this space, and big pharma wants in on that, and that's sort of what we've seen in this deal.
What's interesting is when I think of bio, when I think of pharma, I think of biotech, and I think of the deals that are being unwound. I think of Grail not being able to have been bought back by Illumina, and I think more broadly of the regulatory issues at play. Why is it that these deals, these big deals, are getting through from a regulatory perspective here?
Yeah, I mean, in this case, it's, I guess, not as big of a deal, and there's a differentiation in the types of treatment. So this is a new type of therapeutic. It's, these targeted radiopharmaceutical drugs versus just buying a super similar drug to what Bristol Myers already has. So there's some leeway there. And that also these biotech companies are a lot smaller in many cases, as we've seen with Lilly's acquisition of Point Bio, which was I think a $1.4 billion deal. And so it's a little bit smaller, obviously, compared to the massive Pfizer Seagen deal, which was $43 billion. It's, a lot more. And so there's a little bit less, I think, scrutiny in this space when the companies are a lot smaller, when there's differentiation in the types of therapeutics that are being developed.
Caroline, what I do when I see a Bloomberg News story on an M&A trade, the first thing I do is go M&A go, and then I click on advisors to see which investment bankers are getting paid here. So in this one, BofA Securities is advising Bristol Myers Squibb, and Centerview Partners is advising RayzeBio. So folks getting paid on Wall Street, which is good to see it late year. Madison, It's interesting. Again, it seems like every single Monday we walk into the office and see big pharma buying, some type of biotech company or other pharmaceutical company. Do investors care whether these companies develop their drugs on their own, develop their therapeutics on their own, or acquire them? Do the investors really care how they get there?
A lot of times, actually, I think investors are excited when companies do this type of M&A. I mean, the reaction today was, a little bit different, but it's a lot of times this is just what happens in pharma. They go to these smaller biotech companies that are doing the really innovative work, and then they acquire them. And, usually I feel like when we're talking about drugs or deals in the weight loss drug space as of late. But cancer is another big one that pharma is still really hot on. And because there's all of this innovation and different drugs being developed that are a little bit safer potentially in the biotech, at the biotech level. And so cancer, weight loss drugs, there's also some, we saw the last deal with actually Bristol was for Karuna Therapeutics last week. And that company is developing a drug for schizophrenia, which there hasn't been new treatments for schizophrenia in, decades. So it's kind of interesting. There's actually a lot of recent M&A happening. And, from what I've talked to with analysts and investors, they expect that to continue going into 2024 and that M&A is just going to increase.